Story 1. I'm not supposed to be talking about this. My grandmother warned me, and she was serious, dead serious. Even the name brings attention, she'd say. Just hearing it makes the old ones restless. But I need to get this out. Maybe someone will believe me. Maybe someone else has seen it too. I grew up near Murphy, North Carolina. My dad's white, but my mom's full-blood Cherokee from the snowbird community. Most of the time, my life was normal. School, video games, working weekends at the gas station. But my mom raised me with the old stories, the ones you don't hear in history class. Not the feel-good ones either. The warnings, the real ones. There's a ridge behind our house where the forest gets thick fast. Deer trails wind through it. And if you go high enough, you can see the Hiwassee River like a silver ribbon between the trees. We weren't supposed to go up there. Not alone. Ever. My uncles never talked about why. They just said it was his place. I always thought that was just old people stuff, until that night. I was 17. It was early fall, still warm, crickets loud at night. I'd just gotten into it with my mom over something stupid. I grabbed my flashlight and my old .22 rifle and stormed out, telling her I was going for a walk to cool off. I didn't tell her I was going up the ridge. I guess I was trying to prove something, that I wasn't afraid. Halfway up, I remember thinking how quiet it had gotten, like dead quiet. No bugs, no owls, nothing. Just the crunch of leaves under my boots. My flashlight was acting weird too, flickering, like the batteries were low, but I'd just changed them that morning. I should have turned back. I got to this part of the ridge where there's a split tree, 2 trunks grown out of one stump. That's when I saw it. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, or maybe I was seeing fog, but it wasn't. Something was glowing ahead of me. Not brightly, more like a shimmer, right between the trees, pale and blue-white, pulsing like it was alive. And then I saw the shape. It was coiled, massive, like a tree had fallen and curled into itself. The scales were dark, but there was this sheen to them, like oil on water. And the horns, yes, horns, curved backward from its head like elk antlers. It wasn't moving, just breathing, slow and deep. And on its forehead, there was this light, a stone or gem, glowing like a star had been buried in its head. I froze. I didn't run. I didn't aim my rifle. I just stared. That light, there's no way to explain it. It pulled at you. It wasn't just bright, it was beautiful, hypnotic, like it knew every part of you, like it had been waiting. I took a step forward, then another. I couldn't help it. Something in the back of my head was screaming, but I couldn't move away. I didn't want to. I wanted to get closer. I needed to see it better. My hands were shaking, but I kept walking toward it, like that light was the only thing that mattered. And then, snap, a twig behind me broke. That tiny sound broke the spell. My brain clicked back on. I turned fast, flashlight swinging, and saw nothing. But when I turned back, it was gone. The ground where it had been was flattened, like a 1,000-pound body had just uncoiled and slithered into the trees. There was no sound, no trail, no wind, just silence. And then, I smelled something. Rotten, like old meat in the sun, like something long dead had crawled inside my head and died again. I ran down that ridge so fast I don't even remember falling. My hands were cut up, my jeans torn. I crashed through the brush and didn't stop until I saw our porch light. My mom was outside, barefoot, staring up at the trees like she already knew. She didn't say anything, just looked at me like she was looking through me. "You saw him," she said finally. I didn't answer. She walked up and put her hand on my chest, right over my heart. "You didn't follow the light all the way," she said. "That's the only reason you're alive." I told her what happened. She nodded once. Then she said something I'll never forget. "It wasn't after you." "What do you mean?" I asked. She looked back toward the ridge. Her voice cracked a little. "It was sleeping, and you woke it up." That night, my uncle came over. He burned cedar in the yard, walked around the house in circles, chanting in Cherokee under his breath. My mom wouldn't let me go to sleep until the sun came up. 2 days later, our neighbor, an older man who lived alone about half a mile through the woods, was found dead on his porch. No wounds, no sign of struggle, just sitting there, mouth open, eyes wide like he'd seen something horrible right before the end. They said it was a heart attack, but I know better. I asked my uncle if I should tell anyone. He just shook his head. "Don't say the name," he told me. "That's how he finds you again." I don't go into the woods anymore. Not even during the day. I've tried to forget it. I really have. Story 2. I grew up near Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. Not Pittsburgh with an H. This one's up near the Canadian border, barely clinging to the map. I never really told people I was Abenaki. Not because I was ashamed, just because who'd believe me if I told them the kind of stories I heard growing up? Anyway, I moved away when I was 18, did some drifting, took jobs where I could. Eventually settled in Vermont working as a trail guide. I'd been doing it for a few years when this happened. I didn't think much about my roots anymore. Definitely hadn't thought about the water-faced hunters since I was a kid. My grandfather used to warn us, "Don't speak to a stranger if you can't see the corner of their face. That's how they get you." I always thought it was a metaphor, like for bad people or something. Just one of those stories to scare you into being careful. But then one weekend, last fall, something happened that I still can't explain, and I wish to God I could forget it. It was the last hike of the season, early November, cold enough that most tourists had packed it in. I was leading a couple, late 20s maybe, up a back trail near Averill. It wasn't a popular route, mostly used by hunters. Real remote, thick pine, barely marked. We were supposed to be out just 2 days round trip. They wanted a photo op at the summit and some alone time. I didn't ask questions. They seemed nice enough. She was quiet. He cracked jokes that weren't funny. Anyway, we made good time the first day. Set up camp near this old forestry cabin. Just a rotted frame and chimney left, really. The couple turned in early. I stayed up poking at the fire, sipping from a flask. Stars were out, cold but calm. Then I saw someone. I was facing the tree line, watching the fire. And there, about 20, maybe 30 feet away, was a man, just standing there between the trees. At first I thought it was a hunter. I called out, "Hey, you all right?" No answer. He didn't move, not one bit. Something was off about the way he stood. His head was tilted, not like he was curious, more like he was listening. His body looked wet, like he'd fallen in a river or something. But his clothes weren't dripping. They just looked wet. I don't know how else to explain it. I stood up, shined my flashlight. That's when I saw his face, number. That's when I didn't see his face, where it should have been, eyes, nose, mouth. It was just a rippling silver surface, like a puddle in the moonlight, like I could reach into it and pull out something that didn't belong in this world. And the second I looked at him, I saw my own face looking back at me. I backed up fast, nearly tripped over the fire pit. My heart was slamming against my ribs. I looked away, squeezed my eyes shut, and when I opened them again, he was gone. Just the trees. I sat there for a long time, breathing hard, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. Trick of the light, too much to drink. But then I remembered what my grandfather said. Don't speak. Don't look them in the eye. Don't acknowledge them. And I'd done both. I tried to sleep, but every twig snap out there made my skin crawl. I must have drifted off at some point, because next thing I remember, the woman from the couple was shaking me awake. It was just past dawn. "Have you seen Jack?" she asked. I said no. Figured he went to take a leak or something, but he hadn't taken his boots or his coat, and his pack was still zipped. We looked for him for hours, called his name, checked the trail. Nothing. It was like he just vanished from camp. That's when I noticed something in the dirt behind the cabin. Boot prints, not just Jack's. Another set, bare feet, leading away from camp. They stopped about 30 feet in, like whoever it was just disappeared. No drag marks, no scuffle, just gone. We hiked out that day. I radioed for help once we had a signal. Search and rescue came. Dogs, drones, nothing. No trace, no scent. They questioned us for hours, took my statement. I didn't tell them what I saw, what the guy's face looked like. I just said we thought he got lost in the dark. Typical accident. It's what they wanted to hear. The woman, Jack's girlfriend, wouldn't stop crying. Said he woke her up around 2 a.m., but didn't say anything. Just stood at the tent flap, smiling. I couldn't see his face clearly, she kept saying. It was too dark, but it didn't feel like him. Something felt wrong. They never found him. A few weeks later, I drove back up to my grandfather's old place. I hadn't seen him in years. He was older now, barely remembered who I was. But when I told him, just whispered, I looked one in the eyes, he went real quiet. Then he said, "They let you go." I asked him why. He just looked at me and said, "Because now you speak for them." I don't know what he meant. I don't want to know. But since that night, I don't go near the woods after dark. I don't hike alone. And if I see someone standing too still in the trees, I don't look twice. Story 3, I grew up just outside Catherine, Northern Territory. Hot, dry, scrubland country. My mum's Jawoyn, my dad's white fella, but I spent more time with her side. We lived in a small weatherboard house on a dirt road that only got graded when someone important was visiting. I'm 30 now, but this happened when I was 12. Back then, every few months, Uncle Robbie would take the older boys out bush for walkabout. No phones, no cars, just us and the land. It was meant to toughen us up, teach us where we came from. The elders said if we didn't learn the old ways, we'd forget who we were. That time, he picked me and 2 cousins, Troy and Matthew. We headed out to Nitmalot Gorge, then deeper, beyond where tourists go. Robbie knew the land so well he didn't need a compass. We walked 2 days before setting up camp near a ridge with rock art. That place felt old, quiet in a way that made your ears ring. On the second night after we'd eaten, Robbie pointed up at the dark slope above the trees. "You boys ever hear about the thing that walks the ridge?" Troy grinned. "You mean the Mimi?" Robbie nodded, but didn't smile back. "They trick you. Come out just far enough to be seen, then disappear. You follow and follow. Then you're never seen again." Matthew laughed, but it was nervous. "Like stories for kids, right?" Robbie threw another stick on the fire. "That's what everyone thinks, until someone goes missing." The wind picked up. I remember the fire cracked hard, then went low, almost like something sucked the air out. That night I couldn't sleep. The bush was too still. No insects, no birds. Around 3, I sat up and looked out across the trees, and I saw someone, up on the ridge, just standing there facing me. It was too dark to make out details. Just a thin figure, tall, standing so still it looked like part of the stone. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. Still there. I whispered, "Robbie," but he was snoring, back turned. The others were dead asleep. I kept staring at the figure. It didn't move, but something about it, it felt wrong. Not like a man, not even like an animal. I turned away for a second to grab the torch. When I looked back up, it was gone. That's when I felt the pull. Not physical, something inside me, tugging at my chest like a hook in the ribs. I don't know why I stood up. I didn't wake anyone. Didn't even think about it. I just started walking toward the ridge. Barefoot, in my t-shirt and shorts, no light. Just this horrible knowing that I needed to go where it was. The climb up the slope was steep and sharp with rock, but I didn't feel pain. The moon gave just enough light to see shapes, but the trees were bending, almost leaning away from me. At the top, I stopped. There it was again, 50 feet ahead, still facing me. Only this time, I could see its arms. They were too long, hanging past its knees, and it wasn't standing right. Its body was off balance, like it should have toppled, but didn't. I called out, "Hey, you all right?" It turned. God, its head. It moved like it didn't have bones. Too fast, but no sound. Just the soft crunch of gravel as it stepped backward. I don't know why I followed. It vanished behind a cluster of boulders. When I got there, nothing. Just more scrub. Then I saw it again, farther up. It kept doing that, letting me almost reach it, then gone, then reappearing just close enough to tempt me. I don't know how long I followed. Time got slippery. At some point I noticed the trees were gone. No birds, no wind, just silence and rock. I finally stopped when I saw it standing over a narrow slit in the ground, like a crack between two giant stones. It was waiting for me to follow it in. It didn't move anymore, just stood there, like it knew I'd come all this way and now I had to finish it. And that's when I heard whispering behind me. Dozens of voices, software urgent, like a crowd standing too close, all whispering at once. I spun around, nothing. But when I turned back, it was gone again, and I was standing at the edge of that crack. Something down there breathed. I swear on my life, something down there took a long, wet breath. I staggered back, slipped on the rock, and finally, I don't know how, I screamed. Screamed so hard my throat tore. That scream must have saved me, because somewhere far off, I heard Robbie shout my name. Then again, closer. I kept screaming until he reached me. He grabbed me so hard it left bruises. "What the hell are you doing?" I just pointed at the crack. It was gone. Just rock and dust. No figure, no breathing, nothing. We didn't speak on the way back, not for days. Story 4. I live in Shiprock, New Mexico. Been here all my life. I'm Diné, Navajo, and I work out at the auto shop just outside of town. Most of my days are boring, greasy, and loud. Nights are quiet unless you live near the highway, but every now and then, something slips through the cracks of what we call normal, and sometimes it doesn't leave. This happened to me 2 years ago in August. I was staying at my uncle's place in Lukachukai, helping him fix up an old camper he wanted to rent out. He lives way up on the edge of the canyon, just past the last streetlight. Once you're out there, it's just silence and stars. That night we were drinking coffee on the porch, talking about radiator hoses and axle shafts, when he went inside to take a call. I stayed out, smoking. Maybe 10 minutes went by, and the quiet started getting weird. Not peaceful, weird. Like the kind of quiet that feels too heavy, like the desert itself is holding its breath. That's when I heard it, my uncle's voice from around the side of the house. "Aaron, come here real quick." I didn't even think twice. I started walking toward it, around the edge of the porch, past the shed. But as soon as I turned the corner, there was no one there, just pitch black. I froze. Then he said it again, closer this time. "Aaron, come here." It sounded just like him, same raspy voice, same impatient tone he always uses when he's elbow deep in something and needs help. But I knew something was off. He had gone back inside. I'd watched him do it. The porch door hadn't opened since. And then it hit me. My grandma's warning from when I was little. If someone calls your name and they're out of sight, don't answer. Especially if you know they're not supposed to be there. My throat went dry. I didn't respond. I backed up slow, toward the porch light, not turning around. My uncle's voice called out again. But now it sounded less like him. The tone was right, but the words didn't have that same rhythm. Like someone was trying to sound like him, but couldn't get the flow right. "Aaron, come here." I stopped moving. Then I saw it, under the edge of the trailer, by the cinder blocks. 2 bare feet, dirty, cracked, like they'd been walking for days. They didn't move, just stood there in the shadow like someone was crouched under there, hiding, watching me. I whispered, "Uncle?" The feet twitched, then vanished, like someone pulled them back in. That broke me. I turned and ran full speed back into the house, slammed the door, locked it. My uncle looked up from the kitchen table like I was crazy. "You all right?" he asked. I couldn't speak for a second. I just pointed toward the side of the house. He stood up slow. "What did you see?" "Something under the trailer. It sounded like you. It was calling me." His face went pale, like truly pale. He turned off the lights, grabbed the rifle by the back door, and motioned for me to sit down. Then he started murmuring under his breath in Navajo. Prayers, I think. He didn't ask for details. He just kept the lights off and waited. That night we didn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., we heard it again. This time it wasn't pretending to be him. It was me. "Aaron!" It whispered it in my voice. My exact voice. Right outside the living room window. I stood up before I could stop myself. My uncle grabbed my wrist and pulled me down hard. Shook his head. Then it knocked. Once. Software. Like it knew we were listening, he whispered, "Don't say anything. Don't move." I didn't. It waited, then knocked again, this time louder. The knock didn't come from the door, though. It came from the wall, directly behind the couch where I was sitting. I swear to you, whatever it was had moved around the house and was now right behind me, separated by just drywall. We sat there frozen. I was breathing so shallow my chest hurt. My uncle didn't even blink. He just stared ahead like he was trying to bore a hole in the dark. Then silence. It didn't leave. I felt it still there, standing on the other side of the wall waiting, but it never knocked again, never spoke again, just stood there. We waited until the sun came up. When the light hit the windows, my uncle finally got up and opened the back door. Nothing. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there. The ground was too dry for tracks, but still, it felt wrong. He burned cedar and prayed over the whole property. I didn't argue, didn't speak. I couldn't. After I left that week, I didn't go back. Haven't been to Lukachukai since. My uncle says he hasn't heard anything since that night, but he always adds, don't answer when they call you, like it's a reminder for him and me. I don't tell this story to outsiders anymore. Not because I'm scared they won't believe me, but because some stories aren't for entertainment. They're warnings, and if you grew up around here, you know better than to treat warnings like campfire tales. Whatever that thing was, it knew my name. It knew how to speak like me, move like me, be me. But it couldn't come in unless I gave it something. A word, a step, a glance in the dark. I think about that sometimes. What would have happened if I'd answered, or if I'd walked past the edge of the porch? And I think I know why my grandma always said not to respond when something calls your name from the shadows. It's not trying to find you. It already has. Story 5. I'll never go back to that river, not alone, not even in daylight. And if you've ever paddled along the Mackenzie, near the stone with the dead tree growing out of it, you probably already know why. I live in Fort Simpson, born here, raised here. My mom's from Fort Leard, so we used to drive down there a lot. And every time we passed that hill where Yamoria's body's supposed to be lying, my aunt would tap the window and say, there he is, sleeping, but watching. But this ain't about Yamoria lying in the hills. This is about something that happened to me when I was 21. Something I haven't told many people, because it sounds made up. But it's not. And it changed me. It was late August, that part of the summer where the sun still clings to the sky till after 10, but the air's already starting to bite a little. I'd borrowed my uncle's canoe and decided to spend the day fishing just west of the village, right near that chunk of rock in the middle of the river, where the petrified guts are supposed to be. Yamoga's Beaver. I didn't think much of the stories back then, just old legends, things our grandparents said to keep us respectful of the land. I didn't disrespect it, I just didn't believe it. Not really, not till that day. I was out there alone, no phone, no life jacket either, which I know was stupid, but I'd done that route so many times I could paddle it blindfolded. I tied off near the stone, right at the edge of the current. The water's deep there, dark as motor oil. That dead tree sticking out the top looked more like a lightning-blasted bone than wood. I remember staring at it and thinking it looked almost deliberate, like someone placed it there. I fished for a while, nothing biting, just the sound of water slapping against the canoe and the wind shifting through the brush on shore. Then I saw something in the water. At first I thought it was a muskrat or maybe a log, but it moved upstream against the current, smooth, steady, and it was big, longer than the canoe. I stood up to get a better look, and the thing dove, left this whirlpool that spun for way too long. I should have left right then, but I was curious, dumb and curious. I paddled around the rock to the other side. The water was clearer there. That's when I saw them. Cuts. Deep, gaping slits along the base of the rock, exactly where the story said Yamoga had anchored the beaver's guts. But these weren't just natural cracks. They looked surgical, clean, and they were bleeding. I'm not joking. This dark, oozing stuff was seeping from the slits, running down into the river like it had just happened. I dipped my paddle in, and it came up with this black goo that smelled like rotten fish and burned hair. I backed up fast, my heart pounding. I was about to turn the canoe around when something slammed into the side from below. Hard enough to tip it, I hit the water before I could even think. The cold punched the breath out of me. I scrambled, grabbing at the canoe, but it flipped and rolled. And then I felt it. Something brushed past my leg, thick and slimy. Not like a fish, more like a tail. A big one. I looked down and saw nothing, just black. But then, eyes. 2 yellow eyes opened below me. Wide apart, human-sized, watching me. I screamed, and I don't remember doing that. I don't remember screaming ever in my life, not like that. The thing came up. Not all the way, just a shadow rising in the water, pushing toward me with this awful groaning noise that didn't sound like it came from a throat, but from inside the rock. I swear the tree above us shook. I swam for the shore. Didn't care about the canoe. Didn't care about anything except getting the hell away from that thing. It followed me for a while. I could feel it under the surface, circling, watching. I collapsed on the shore, coughing and shaking. When I looked back, the rock was still there, still solid, still dripping, and I swear to you, the tree wasn't there anymore. It was just gone, like it got pulled inside the rock. I ran all the way back to town. I didn't even tell my uncle I lost his canoe. I didn't tell anybody for weeks, but eventually I brought it up to my grandmother. Just asked her if she ever heard about anything strange out by the Beaver Rock. She didn't even look surprised, just nodded and said, "They ain't just stories." That beaver wasn't normal. It was a spirit. Yamoga killed it, sure, but it ain't ever really died. I asked her what it wanted, why it came after me. She said, "That thing remembers, and you were fishing in its guts." I still dream about it sometimes. That awful tree sticking up like a bone, the black slits bleeding into the river, and the yellow eyes opening below me. And sometimes in the dream it comes out of the water completely. Not just the eyes, the whole thing. Like a nightmare moose with no skin, dripping, snarling, made of water and rot. And in the dream it always says the same thing. "You don't belong here. I don't fish out there anymore. Nobody should." That's not just a story marker, not just a legend. Something's alive in that rock, and I think Yamoga never finished the job. He just pinned it there, bleeding, feeding the fish, and waiting. Waiting for someone dumb enough to paddle in alone. And I was that dumb someone. Story 6. I live in Anadarko, Oklahoma, born and raised. My family's been here for generations. Kiowa on my mom's side, Comanche on my dad's. The house I grew up in is still standing, about 10 miles out from town, on a patch of land that's been in our family long before the government decided where our borders ended. It's just red dirt, cedar trees, and sky out here. Quiet. Too quiet sometimes. I wasn't supposed to hear this story. I was about 12 when I overheard my mom talking about it to my aunt late one night. They thought I was asleep, but I'd crept out of bed to get a glass of water, and the sound of her voice stopped me cold in the hallway. She said, "I never told her." I never told any of them. What was the point? They were too little to remember. You remember though, don't you? That night, my aunt got real quiet. Then she said, "The owls." It didn't make sense to me back then, but I didn't forget it either. Not the way they said it, like it still scared them. I asked my mom about it years later when I was grown. She hesitated, but she finally told me. She was 10 years old when it happened. One night her father, my grandfather, told her, "Take your sisters and your brother and go to the storm shelter. Lock it from the inside. Don't open the door unless I come for you." No explanation, no storm, just that. And then he handed her a flashlight and shut the door behind her. My mom said she did what she was told. She took the younger kids, my Auntie Mary, Uncle Joe, and the baby Lila, and they climbed down into that dirt cellar. No one was crying, but they were all confused. Mom was the oldest, and she tried to act like it was nothing. Just practice or something. That's what she told them. But she said something was off. The air didn't feel right. The cicadas had stopped. Even the coyotes, which usually yipped through the night, were dead silent. She forgot to lock the door. She didn't realize it until they were already down there. The steel latch on the inside, she'd left it open. She said she felt weird, like something was tugging at her chest. She thought maybe she should check, just peek outside and make sure. She climbed the wooden ladder slowly and pushed the door open a crack. I still remember how she described it. There wasn't any wind, she told me, but the trees were swaying like there was a storm coming, and I heard this low sound, not thunder. It was like wings, heavy wings, all at once. She opened the door the rest of the way and stepped outside. Then she looked up. She said they were everywhere. Owls, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. She couldn't even see the stars, just wings and glowing eyes, spinning above her in total silence. They weren't flapping, not like normal birds. They were just gliding in wide, slow circles, covering the sky like smoke. They weren't landing, just circling, over their house, over the neighbors' houses, over the whole land it felt like. And she said something else, something that made my skin crawl. They weren't real owls, not all of them. Some were wrong. What do you mean wrong? I asked her. She looked away from me when she answered. Their eyes. They were shaped like people's eyes. I told myself she was probably exaggerating. It was a childhood memory, maybe a bad dream, until it happened again. 2 years ago. Winter. I was visiting my Uncle Joe at the old property. He's the only one who still lives out there full time. I was staying the night because his truck was dead, and I offered to help him fix it the next morning. The power had gone out that evening, so we were using candles. No big deal. Happens often out there. It was around midnight when the temperature dropped. Fast. It felt like all the heat got sucked out of the air. I went outside to smoke, and I noticed the dogs. 2 big shepherd mixes. They were whining, not barking, just pacing and whining. Then they crawled under the porch and wouldn't come out. That's when I heard it. A sound like wind, except the trees weren't moving. The same dead stillness my mom had described. I looked up, and there they were. Owls, just like she said. Dozens of them, silently circling above the property. The moon was full, but their bodies blocked the light like a thick cloud. No hooting, no flapping. Just that eerie, gliding motion and the soft whoosh of feathers cutting through the air. Then one broke off from the circle and flew lower. It landed on the roof. I could hear its claws scrape the metal. I backed toward the house. I didn't want to run. I didn't want to look scared, even though my whole body was screaming at me to get inside. That's when I saw its face. It was staring down at me, but not like an animal. Its head didn't twitch or tilt like normal owls do. It just looked right into me, and its eyes weren't round. They were narrow, human-shaped, and they glowed. I didn't even make it to the front door. My uncle opened it and pulled me inside. He was pale, sweating, said he'd seen them through the window. The owls came back, he muttered. I thought it was over. He pulled out a pouch of tobacco, tossed a pinch on the floor, then whispered a prayer in Kiowa. I didn't understand all of it, but I stood still and didn't interrupt. Eventually the sound faded. The dogs came out. The owls were gone. It hasn't happened again. Not yet. My uncle says in our tribe, owls are messengers, warnings. Sometimes they're spirits of the wronged, looking for whoever did them harm. Sometimes they carry something darker, unfinished business, restless anger. He wouldn't say what he thought they wanted from us, but he made me promise something before I left. If they ever come again, he said, don't open the door. Story 7. I grew up on Annette Island, Alaska, Metlakatla, only federally recognized Tsimshian community in the U.S. We're tight-knit out here, surrounded by cold ocean and thick woods that just seem to go on forever. That kind of place either makes you feel safe or like you're being watched every second. For me, it was both. This happened when I was 17. I wasn't drinking, I wasn't high, none of that. I was with my cousin Jamie and we were out near Yellow Hill, past the long stretch of beach where we usually find sea glass. We were just walking back after checking some crab pots. It was quiet, too quiet actually. Even the gulls weren't calling. We'd been out a little later than planned. Sky was dimming fast and the fog started rolling in from the water. I remember Jamie saying, we should head back. It's starting to feel weird out here. I agreed. Something about the silence made me uncomfortable. I kept looking over my shoulder like someone was going to step out from behind one of the cedar trees. About halfway down the trail, we both heard footsteps behind us. Heavy ones. Too heavy for an animal. Jamie turned around first. "What the hell?" he said, freezing. I looked. Standing about 30 feet behind us was my uncle. Or, it looked like my uncle. But it wasn't him. It was wearing his same camo jacket, the same torn beanie. But the face, something was wrong with it. The mouth didn't move right. The eyes were wide and too round, like someone was trying to remember how to wear a face. I took a step back without meaning to. "You see that, right?" I asked Jamie. He just nodded. "Uncle Ray," I called out. It smiled at me, not in a friendly way. The smile was too wide, too flat, and held for way too long, like it thought that's what people do when they're recognized. But it didn't say anything. Jamie whispered, "He's in Ketchikan, remember?" For his knee. And that's when my chest tightened. I took another step back, and this thing tilted its head like a dog trying to understand something. But there was no emotion in the movement, just calculation, like it was deciding if it should keep pretending. Then it started walking toward us, slow and stiff, like it didn't really know how legs worked. One arm swung too high, the other not at all. We ran, no hesitation. We bolted down the trail, branches smacking our faces, feet barely touching the ground. I didn't even try to look back, but I heard it. It didn't run, it just kept walking. The footsteps were steady, not fast, not slow. Somehow they were always just behind us, even though we were sprinting. When we broke out of the trees onto the gravel road near Jamie's house, the sound stopped. We didn't look back. We ran straight to the house and slammed the door shut behind us. His mom, my aunt, looked up and asked what the hell was going on. We told her, and she didn't say a word. She just stared at us for a second, then got up, locked every door, closed the blinds, and lit a small bundle of cedar and sweetgrass in the wood stove. When I asked her again what that was, all she said was, "Don't talk about it again. Don't feed it with your voice." I slept at Jamie's that night. We didn't talk, didn't play Xbox, didn't scroll our phones. We just sat in his room with all the lights on, trying not to hear the occasional creak from outside. I still don't know what that thing was, but here's what really screws me up. A week later, Uncle Ray came back from Ketchikan, and when I saw him for the first time, I felt my stomach drop. He was wearing the exact same jacket, the same beanie. I asked him if he'd been back earlier, maybe taken the ferry back for a day and gone home without telling anyone. He laughed and said no. His leg had been wrapped the whole time, and he couldn't walk without a crutch. When I told Jamie, he said he'd already asked the same thing, same answer. I've heard of shapeshifters before. Raven stories, beings that steal light and play tricks. But this wasn't clever. It wasn't curious. It was empty. Like it wanted to wear something human, but didn't know what to do once it did. I haven't walked that trail since, and I never say his name, Uncle Ray, when I'm near the woods, just in case it hears me and thinks I'm inviting it back. Story 8. I grew up on the Colville Reservation in Washington State. If you're not familiar with it, it's a patchwork of dense forest, open plains, and mountains that always feel like they're watching you. I lived out near Keller, a pretty isolated area, mostly logging roads and miles of nothing. People think being out there is peaceful, but there's a different kind of silence in the woods here, like the land is holding its breath. Anyway, this happened when I was 17. It was October, already cold, with that dry kind of wind that comes through the trees like it's whispering something. My Uncle Danny had asked me to help him check some old hunting traps up past the canyon line. He was sick that year, couldn't walk far, so I went alone. My mom didn't want me to, but I told her I'd be back by dark. I took the old Ford up the trail as far as it would go, then walked the last couple miles with my rifle. I wasn't scared or anything. I'd done this before, and nothing ever happened besides the occasional coyote scare or weird tracks in the mud. But that day, I got this weird feeling before I even left the truck, like I was being watched. I chalked it up to nerves and kept going. The trap line ran along this ridge where the trees get so thick they block out most of the light. I remember stopping halfway to take a leak and hearing something moving behind me, just inside the brush. I called out, figured maybe it was a deer or elk, but nothing answered. Then it went quiet, completely silent. No wind, no birds. Even my own footsteps sounded wrong, like they were echoing when they shouldn't have. I checked the first 2 traps, nothing. Then I came to the third, right near an old cedar that locals call the Old Man. It's supposed to be sacred. Some families won't even look at it when they pass. I've heard all the stories growing up. Don't whistle at night, don't go into the woods alone after dark, never answer voices you hear in the forest. I was crouched down checking the trap when I heard it. Twigs snapping, not like a little animal, heavier, 2-footed, like a person walking, slow, behind me. I stood up real fast and turned, rifle up. No one was there. But then something stepped out from behind the old man. It looked like an elk at first, tall with antlers, but wrong. Too thin, legs bent weird like it didn't know how to stand like a real animal. And its eyes. I swear to God, they were forward-facing, like a predator. Like it was sizing me up. I raised the rifle, thinking maybe I was looking at a sick animal. But it opened its mouth and laughed. Not like a person, not like an animal either. It sounded like 5 or 6 different voices at once. Men, women, something in between, all laughing at different tones, overlapping. I couldn't move. My legs just locked. And then it spoke. It said my name 3 times, like it was chewing on it. Tyler. I hadn't told anyone where I was going that day, not even my cousins. Just my mom and Uncle Danny, and I sure as hell didn't say my name out loud. It started walking toward me, real slow. Not like it was afraid, like it wanted me to run. Then it made this weird clicking sound with its mouth and did something that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. It dropped on all 4s but backwards, like its elbows bent the wrong way and its back legs twisted so it could crawl like a spider. I bolted, dropped the rifle. I don't even remember turning. Just running. The trees felt like they were closing in, and behind me I could hear it, those backwards footsteps scraping through the brush. It wasn't even trying to be quiet. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The sound it made when it chased me, it wasn't breathing. It was mimicking me. My footsteps, my panicked gasps, even the little sobs I was trying to hold in. It was mirroring me. By some miracle, I made it back to the truck. I jumped in and slammed the door, but I didn't start it right away. I was shaking too hard. And then, I swear I saw it, just at the edge of the tree line. Still crawling, still smiling, antlers brushing the low branches. I finally got the engine going and peeled out of there so fast I nearly rolled the truck coming down the ridge. I didn't go back for the traps, not even the rifle. My uncle didn't ask why. That night, my mom smudged the whole house, wouldn't let me sleep alone. I didn't argue. Later, my grandfather told me he'd seen something like it once when he was a kid. Called it squuk-woo in our language. Stick Indian. Said they were forest tricksters, not spirits, not animals. Something older. He said they don't kill you right away. They chase you, wear your face, take your name. If they like how you scream, they keep you. Story 9. I never believed in skinwalkers or mountain spirits or anything like that. Not because I thought I was too smart. I just never saw anything that made me believe. My mom used to warn me growing up, don't be out past dark in the hills. There's things older than us out there. But I always figured she was just trying to keep me from sneaking off. 3 years ago, I was working for a small construction crew doing survey work for a pipeline expansion near the Carrizo Mountains, east of Lukachukai. The project got held up by weather, so we had a couple weeks with nothing to do. I got bored and started hiking around the hills on my own. There was this one trail the old guys in the chapter house told me to stay off of. The one that loops past Red Dog Wash. They said that part of the mountain was closed, which usually just means it's got something sacred or dangerous on it. But I figured I wasn't bothering anyone. On the second day, I saw what looked like a collapsed mine entrance built into the side of a red rock slope. It wasn't marked on any map I had. Just a hole in the rock, barely 4 feet tall, almost swallowed by brush. I crouched down and shined my headlamp in. It wasn't deep, maybe 20 feet before it curved left into total blackness. Now here's the part that didn't make sense. Inside, just past the entrance, The rock walls were carved, not like modern blasting. These were chiseled, like with hand tools. There were markings too, some kind of symbols scratched into the wall, ones I didn't recognize from any of our traditions. They looked older, and there were bones in there, tiny ones like birds or prairie dogs, arranged in weird little piles like someone had placed them there carefully. I should have turned back. I really should have, but I was curious, and that's what got me. I ducked inside, stepping around the piles, and followed the tunnel left. My boots crunched on loose gravel, and it smelled like wet rock and something else. Something foul, like rotting meat. About 30 feet in, the air got cold enough that I could see my breath, and then I heard it. A voice. I don't care what anyone says, I heard it, clear as day. A man's voice, not yelling, not whispering, just speaking. You've come far to take what isn't yours. It didn't echo. It sounded like it was being said right behind my head. I spun around, slammed my shoulder into the tunnel wall, and hit the beam of my flashlight back down the way I'd come. Nothing. Just the jagged path back out. I started backing up, slow. The hair on my neck was standing straight. My heart was pounding, like it was trying to claw its way out of my chest. Then I saw it. A figure stepped out of the dark curve in the tunnel ahead of me. No noise, no movement before that. Just there, suddenly standing. It looked like a man, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall, too thin, arms too long. Its skin looked like it was stretched too tight, gray and dry like hide left out in the sun. Its head was tilted, like it was trying to listen or smell something. No eyes that I could see, just deep hollows. And when it opened its mouth to speak again, I saw it didn't have a tongue. Just this black, empty space that sucked in sound. You broke the stone seal, it said, or maybe not said, vibrated like the words were crawling into my skull. I ran. I don't even remember turning. Just remember daylight slashing across the tunnel floor and hurling myself toward it, tripping on rocks, scraping my hands. I made it out into the open, sprinted down the slope, didn't stop running until I was halfway back to camp. And the air was different. Dead silent, no wind, no birds. The world felt like it had stopped. Like the second I came out of that hole, something had left with me. That night I didn't sleep. I kept hearing tapping on the walls of my trailer. Not scratching, tapping, steady, rhythmic. I kept telling myself it was branches, even though there were no trees close enough. The next morning I found tracks outside the trailer. They weren't boot prints. They were bare, long, narrow feet with 6 toes. They circled the trailer 3 times, then just stopped. I quit the job that day, told the boss I was done and left town. I've never been back to that mountain. I've asked around since. Talked to my uncle, who's a medicine man. He said something about Senidilco, a cursed place where old things were buried and not meant to be found again. Places sealed by the mountains, spirits to keep what's down there from coming back up. He told me the worst thing you can do is acknowledge it. Speak to it. I told him I already had. He just shook his head. Then you better pray it forgets your voice. I haven't seen the thing again. Story 10. I don't usually talk about this, but since you brought up the deer woman, I'll tell you what happened to me. My name's Damon. I'm Cherokee from Oklahoma, born and raised near Tahlequah. I was 16 when this happened. It was during a summer powwow in 2007. My cousin Kyle and I were just there for the girls and the fry bread, honestly. We didn't think too hard about the traditions back then. My stepmom was Deer Clan, and she always told me, you don't eat deer, not even jerky, especially not at a powwow. She said the deer woman shows up when you break that rule. I didn't listen. My dad didn't either. He'd sneak her venison in stews just to piss her off. She'd get sick every time, like seriously sick. Migraines, nosebleeds, even collapsed once. Still, I thought it was all just stories and some bad reaction. That night, the powwow wrapped up a little after 10. Most of the elders had gone home, and the rest of us teens were just hanging around. There was a vendor still selling jerky, real thick, smoky deer jerky. Kyle dared me to eat a whole strip in one go, and I did, right in front of the empty dance circle. About 10 minutes later, I felt this weird chill. It was late July, but it suddenly felt like October. I remember looking around and noticing how quiet everything got. Powwows are never quiet. Even after the main event, people usually keep talking, music playing from someone's truck. But it was dead silent, the kind of silence that presses against your ears. Kyle nudged me and pointed. "Yo, look at her!" There was a woman standing near the tree line, just past the edge of the grass. Tall, long black hair, and wearing a red ribbon skirt. At first I thought she was just one of the dancers waiting for a ride, but something felt off. Her posture was stiff, like she wasn't breathing. Her head tilted to the side, and it stayed that way too long. Then she moved. I swear she didn't walk. She just sort of glided toward us, but her lower half was behind the tall grass, so I couldn't see her legs. The closer she got, the more my stomach twisted. I had this heavy feeling, like I needed to throw up, but I couldn't move. Kyle whispered, "Don't talk. Don't say anything." That freaked me out more than anything. Kyle was the one always cracking jokes, always pushing buttons, but now he looked terrified. She stopped a few feet from us, close enough to see her face. I don't know how else to say this. She was beautiful, almost too beautiful. Like her face didn't match the rest of reality. High cheekbones, perfect skin, black eyes, not dark brown, black, no whites, no reflection. She smiled at me, just me. Then she held out her hand, palm up. Her fingers were long, too long. "Come with me," she said, soft as wind through leaves. My body moved forward before I told it to. Just one step. Kyle grabbed my arm hard. "Look down!" That snapped me out of it. I looked down. She had hooves, not like little costume hooves. These were real, split, dark, wet like she'd stepped through mud. Her feet were wrong. Her legs bent backwards like a deer's hind legs. But she stood upright, still wearing that red skirt, which I now realized didn't move with the wind. I stumbled back. My mouth went dry. I couldn't breathe. Her smile dropped. She looked angry, not like a normal person angry. Her eyes went wide and flat. She made this sound, somewhere between a scream and a deer's bleat. It hit me right in the chest. My ears rang. Then she charged. Not ran, charged. Like a deer sprinting straight at me. Kyle shoved me out of the way and I hit the grass hard. I turned just in time to see her leap into the air. Her body twisted in midair like smoke. Her arms became legs. Her face stretched and split into a snout. Antlers burst from her scalp. She landed where I'd been standing, but now she was a full deer, black-eyed and massive, steam pouring out of her nose. And then she vanished, like blinked out. 1 second she was there, next she wasn't. No sound, no trail, just the smell, like wet fur and rot, lingering in the air. Kyle didn't say anything for a while. We just sat there in the grass, shaking. I didn't even notice I'd pissed myself until I got home.